So, hello everyone. My name's Gabby. I'm back here doing a stream because I'm doing a stream. I don't really know what else to say. So, the thing for this video is Mother's Basement, who's a kind of an YouTuber, you could say, anime YouTuber. He's got 1.3 million subscribers according to this. So, he's pretty popular. He made a video called Let Goku Die, and it's you know, like it's the title's clickbaity on purpose, and it's not really well, it is clickbait, but it's not really he's got a point to this video. The problem is his video he uses Dragon Ball as an example for things, and the problem is a lot of the info that he says about Dragon Ball is wrong. And some of it's wrong where it's just like, okay, maybe he's just confused. Some of it's just wrong and I don't even know where he got that conclusion from. And I don't want to go too much into the sort of, really ragging on big YouTubers for not doing their research and not knowing Dragon Ball properly because, I already know what this looks like. I know what this looks like to people. It's just going to be like, oh yeah, hardcore Dragon Ball fan gets upset that that YouTuber says something about Dragon Ball that is not correct and now let's go and cancel him or whatever. But it's not like that. I don't want to cancel Mother's Basement or do anything stupid like that. Totally understand why he did this the way he did this, and that I think he has to really always get out new content, and that often kind of puts a strain on things, and sometimes he'll just sort of make conclusions early and not necessarily do as much research as he should because he needs to get these videos out. And sometimes he just assumes that he was right, and so he doesn't investigate any further. It's just interesting. It's just going to be interesting because I want to basically I just want to go through this video and at least the Dragon Ball parts and kind of just be like where did he get that from? Or that's actually not how it goes. And because basically, I mean, I'll talk about it. This video is sort of talking about the idea of, how in our current media society and whatnot, we just have this thing where it's like, oh, why don't we just have all of our shows last forever? And, things don't need to end because it's fine. There's nothing wrong with having things that go on for an eternity. And it's almost like you kind of wonder what kind of message that sends to us, where it's like almost like a nostalgia thing, and it's like we almost never need to grow old or accept that things change if all of our media is just going constantly redoing itself and doing the same things and never changing and evolving and that kind of stuff. And I understand that as a concept. I don't know if I necessarily agree per se, but I at least respect it. Problem is the way he uses Dragon Ball as an example of something that falls into that. It's Dragon Ball is not exactly the best example. Yes, Dragon Ball is being rebooted, doing a lot of rebooting, doing a lot of things where the status quo doesn't necessarily change. But I don't think Dragon Ball is actually a great example of some kind of anime media thing that just goes on forever without any sort of end. Dragon Ball has an end, and this mid-core thing itself is, yes, it's been going on for a while, but it's also not completely sustainable. It is not something that's going to happen forever and ever and ever. That's kind of what I think about it, and I think that's the problem about having this video be about Goku and that being the big selling point. So, without further ado, even though nobody is watching, it's fine. It might just be maybe I will make this a video. Who knows? We'll figure it out. As in video on the main channel. But without further ado, since everything seems to be working, let's go and let's start this video up. This reaction video, essentially. Let's start this reaction video. Let's go.
December 14th, 2022. The day Nothing Forever, an AI-generated, viewer-directed Seinfeld clone, began streaming on Twitch. And true to its name, it didn't stop until it was banned for procedurally generated bigotry, which seems to happen a lot with AI stuff.
Actually, while I'm here, I wanted to actually point that out, is that I wanted to say about, Mother's Basement, hello, Jackievis. one thing I want to say about Mother's Basement is, I don't think he is like, oh, trash YouTuber, blah 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 blah. He just the typical, anime YouTuber who doesn't give a shit about anything. Like, I think his videos are actually pretty good, but also because like even when he does like his roasts or whatever, he does like a roast or like ranting about things. Like, he generally, at least nowadays, especially the last few years, he's really matured a lot, I think, and he saves those sorts of criticisms for people who I think deserve it. Like, like he campaigns for the things that I think matter, like, the rights of workers and animators to get more wages and have better conditions, and like just really bad shows, and like fucking freaking a cult. Like, his videos on the Happy Science anime, I think are great because it's just him roasting the shit out of this cult, which is great. I think it's hilarious. So, and in that kind of like a, yes, this is what Happy Science people actually believe, and it is absolutely batshit insane. So, I think, yeah, he's not just somebody who's just going around just like shitting on people just because he can. At least nowadays, and he's basically even said like he's do like old videos like bashing on Sword Art Online, and he's kind of like, nowadays I'm a bit more mature and I think I would do it a bit better. So, that's the other reason why I actually do respect Mother's Basements. I don't just say, oh, he's just an anime YouTuber who just doesn't get it, yada yada yada. I think he does get something. So the fact that he did this and he clearly didn't do enough research on actually how the modern Dragon Ball thing all works is, yeah, that's what kind of upsets me. Like, I think he can do better. That's why it especially upsets me. So anyway, let's continue.
While the machine learning technology behind the series is technically quite impressive in its ability to simulate almost coherent mundane conversations, ChatGPT clearly hasn't quite learned what a joke is yet. Nonetheless, Nothing Forever's AI does deploy laugh tracks with the exact same accuracy as Big Bang Theory, and has been hailed in certain online circles as a surreal anti-funny parody of what happens to TV shows when they refuse to end. Those circles, distressingly, do not seem to include the creators of Nothing Forever, who, by their own account, see this thing as the first experimental step toward, quote, a show that can generate entertaining content forever, because that's truly where we see the future emerging towards.
This is what I
According
mean.
to them,
Like, it's this kind of, what he's really bragging about here is this sort of, step to literally machine learning of the sort of, I guess, commodification of art. Turning art into into just something that you consume and don't think about, and it doesn't really matter. You don't even need people involved. Just use constant AI to just decide everything about everything. So, I think that's a good thesis statement. So, but I don't think it applies to Dragon Ball.
at any point, you're going to be able to turn on the future equivalent of Netflix and watch a show perpetually, non-stop, as much as you want. You don't just have 7 seasons of a show, you have 700, or infinite seasons of a show that has fresh content whenever you want it. This terrible idea has been roundly mocked by everyone with even the slightest shred of taste on the internet. Nonetheless, there is an endlessly horrified part of me that worries they might be right, that the future they've envisioned is already most of the way here, and enough people have been conditioned to want it that the only way to stop it would be to go back in time. So, let's do that.
We're living in a society!
No.
Oh,
Mr. Perrottet,
whoops.
did you really choose to sell $90 billion of our
November 1st,
Don't worry what
1988,
that's an ad
the
for.
day Earth lost her mightiest warrior, Son Goku, to an even mightier warrior from another planet who was his surprise older brother. A tragic day indeed, especially for Goku's surprise son, Gohan, but not that tragic in the grand scheme
Well,
of
just let
things.
me
I mean,
just
the
let-
show's got magic.
Let me just wait 1 second, just to double check that this is recording properly. I'm being very paranoid because I don't. Rob is not watching, basically. Okay, yeah, seems to work. Yep, okay, that's all working fine. Sorry, I was being paranoid. Back to our regularly scheduled reaction video.
wish balls that can bring any dead person back to life once. They're right there in the title, so
Hello,
the whole
Jesus.
thing was really just a slightly convoluted setup for our hero to hit the afterlife for a training arc with an even godlier god than the one who trained him to beat the Demon King, returning just in time to save the Earth from another, stronger evil Goku from space. Also, as it turned out, the aforementioned Demon King was an alien too, as was that less godly god who gave birth to the Demon King asexually, like a frog. So, when the Prince of all Gokus kills the reborn Demon King, but he's good now.
So that was the first problem. Where he said, "Oh yeah, the prince of all Goku's killed." No. Nappa was the one that killed Piccolo. Like you watched the episode clearly. Like obviously he's here is like maybe he's just saying that because he just wants to simplify things because he doesn't want to say, "Oh, the Prince of all Goku's second in command kills." Like he just wants to make the script snappier, but it's just that like it's stuff like that where it's like is that the case or does he legitimately forget that it was Nappa and not Vegeta? You know, it's just that sort of thing.
Now, that sets up an arc where they have to go to his home planet and use some even better magic wish balls that can grant the same wish multiple times to bring him and their magic wish balls back, plus beat up an evil space real estate tycoon and his evil wannabe Power Rangers. But that arc, in turn, ended with the destruction of the other better magic wish balls, meaning if Goku died again, he'd be dead for real.
So okay, and then here he's like, oh yeah, in the Freezer arc, it ended with the better Namekian Dragon Balls getting destroyed. No, it didn't. What do you mean? They got brought back afterwards. That's how it happened during the Freezer fight. They spent the whole time trying to figure out how to get the Namekian Dragon Balls to work again, and then they were on Earth, and then they used them again. No, that's not how that arc ended. What are you talking about?
And the engines on the spaceship that brought him home weren't even cold yet when that very thing came to pass a year later from a heart disease which caused most of humanity to be wiped out by evil androids when Goku couldn't stop.
The reason why the Dragon Balls couldn't bring Goku back to life from a heart disease is actually the reason why it couldn't bring Goku back to life from a heart disease is because they didn't realize that there was going to be an android coming out next year. They said, "Hey, well he died of natural causes, so that's just it, right?" It's only until the androids go and mess shit up and they're like, maybe we did need Goku retroactively.
Them, as we learned from a guy who just used a time machine to deliver him some heart pills so all that wouldn't happen. Also, that guy was secretly the son of Shadow the Goku, who's turned good now. Still, he was only staving off the inevitable. That time machine also inadvertently brought back a much bigger threat from the future, which Goku would eventually need to sacrifice his own.
Like technically it wasn't technically it wasn't Trunks' time machine. It was another version of Trunks' time machine from another version of a timeline of the blah 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 wibbly wobbly typing wimey stuff. So you know,
life to stop, at long last accepting
Also,
that he
Falcon
couldn't
and
be the
Music
world's strongest
really
forever, and passing the
know.
torch to Gohan, who unknowingly had already surpassed his father through their adventures. Though he would defend Earth in his own way, taking up the mantle of a masked superhero to fulfill his duty while still living a normal life like his mom always wanted for him. A fitting, dare I say, poetic ending to a story that kicked off with our hero picking up a torch left by his own recently departed father figure. But then, in a stunning twist, the manga and anime were still making just so much money, so Goku got to meet an even...
Okay, see, and then they're like, oh, it's it's one of those things where it's like, oh, he's like he's making these simplifications of it, and like maybe that's for the bit, but like no, the Cell Saga was not supposed to be the ending. It was just the ending of that arc, and then they were going to continue it the very next week. There was no we were just going to stretch it out for any longer. I mean, this is shit that if you're going around and being in the Dragon Ball fandom for too long, you've seen the intended ending guides on Kanzenshu. You know, like no. Nobody pressured Toriyama to keep going. He just kind of kept going until he ran out of ideas, essentially.
Godlier super god who gave him a get-out-of-death-free day pass to come back.
Okay, and then that like okay, let me just go back and read that.
And anime were still making just So much money, so Goku got to meet an even godlier super god who gave him a get out of death free day pass to come back and fight in the world tournament with
So okay, and then this that is this one was just so weirdly, wildly. I was like, where do you even get this from? Being like no, Goku did not get the get out of jail free card from the Daikaijin from the Otherworld tournament filler arc. No, he got that from Uranai Baba. That was like a thing that was established so early on in Dragon Ball, like years and years beforehand. There was a thing that had happened. It was not something they just made up for that story because they wanted to bring Goku back, and it has nothing to do with the filler arc that it was in the anime. No, it was that was like a real deep lore thing that they did to bring Goku back to life. So it's just like a. Jakevis is like, do you think he's being sardonic just so he can make angry comments on his video that will raise up search results? I didn't think about the idea that he was being wrong on purpose. I thought he was just being wrong because it made the script sound better. But, well, whatever. I mean, I guess I am giving him views by doing it. Yeah, there you go. There you go, Mother's Basement. You get my views by me going around and saying, that's not true. But actually, I am being the actually person right now. But that you got to admit, they're very strange conclusions to make, right?
with all his friends and family one last time, but then that was interrupted by a maniacal space wizard trying to resurrect a giant evil magic baby sealed within the Earth. Then a lot of war happened, Shadow the Goku turned evil again and then turned good again, an even godlier super duper god showed up, dudes started fusing with other dudes, then fusing in a different way, and the evil baby split up and fused a bunch of times, then got swole, then small, but the small one was actually the scariest of them all. And then Goku saved the day by pressing the Save the Day button he got in his first Afterlife training arc, earning a permanent, indefinite extension on his day pass, and the small evil.
See, okay, and like that, what is this? Goku got an extension to his life because basically everyone was screwed, and then they're like, well, whatever, fine, go, because it was almost like we have no other choice but to give you life to come back. And I don't think it was that satisfying either, but it wasn't like he did it because his deeds were so great that he deserved it or something, and as some kind of weird karmic Buddhist afterlife kind of thing. No, it was just the Kaishin's well, I'm alive, I can give you my life because I'm already in the place for dead people. Anyway, let's keep going.
Evil baby was reincarnated as a nice Indian guy who Goku got to fight in another world tournament, but also his now good fat baby half was still alive and gay married to a pro wrestler. It was at this point that series creator Akira Toriyama left the franchise over creative differences with Shueisha and Toei Animation.
I'm sorry, what creative differences? Creative differences? Where did you get that from? No, he left the manga because he didn't want to write the manga anymore. I think he kind of explains that sort of more later on, a little bit better. But creative differences, you're just saying these words that are just creating all these really kind of insidious misconceptions on how Dragon Ball even happened. What's creative?
His creativity was totally burned out, and he figured he'd made enough money by now, whereas they didn't believe in the concept of enough money.
See, this makes it sound like they wanted to do Dragon Ball GT, and then they said, "Hey, we have ideas for more Dragon Ball," and then Toriyama said, "No, I don't want to the idea of GT was just so bad that he said, screw it, I'm ending the manga now forever because I don't want to get involved in writing GT." What? What is this? No, this is not how it went down in any sort of thematic or conceivable way.
So Goku was turned back into a kid by a secret third set of magic wish balls that are even better than the even better ones, but also destroy the planet when you use them unless you go on a fetch quest, which feels like a very on-the-nose metaphor, but I suspect was just a result of Kid Goku being easier and more fun to animate. Either way,
I
fans...
don't think, well, I mean, we actually have answers to that. It's not because of that, it's because they thought Kid Goku would basically be nostalgic. It was got nothing to do with the animation. They just thought it'd be a good nostalgic vibe. Look, Goku's a kid like very early on in Dragon Ball. That was essentially it. Back to basics sort of thing.
Didn't really like that, so they made him turn back into an adult when he goes Super Saiyan, but fans still didn't like it, like, a lot. So after a year and a bit of trying and failing to make it work, they just sort of gave up and wrote a rushed ending that, conceptually at least, ties it all together a lot better than the Buu Saga did, by at least finally creating some consequences for solving all your problems with magic wish balls, but that's just like my opinion, man. And again, I'm only talking about the structure, not, the quality of the writing, because that was pretty dog shit.
So yeah, once again, that kind of like, the Shadow Dragons arc, good idea, bad execution sort of thing of like I think it's cool. It's funny because, there are some people who say, I think it's really cool that, it's a really cool conceptual idea that the final villains of Dragon Ball are the Dragon Balls, and it talks about the consequences of using something to get what you want with no consequences. And then there are other people who are like, I don't think it really actually does fit the tone of Dragon Ball. I think that it's Dragon Ball is kind of okay with acknowledging that silly things like wish granting with no consequences can just happen. Like it just suits the kind of story they're trying to tell. So, that itself is also debatable, but he did also say, hey, that's just my opinion, man. So that's definitely not something worth getting on him about. Because, everyone, literally even Dragon Ball fans have different opinions on that.
In GT, and still nowhere near
yes,
as good as the Cell
Dragons.
Saga ending with a Saiyaman epilogue would have been.
The Shadow Dragons as well, yes. The writing is not very good.
Anyway,
It's interesting he says the idea that he thinks the Great Saiyaman was like an epilogue. Like, no, that was like, yeah, sure, it was very weird in the grand scheme of things. Like, it doesn't really fit into anything. But no, this wasn't some kind of epilogue. It was the start of something new, not the beginning of the end. Anyway.
while Goku may not have been formally dead at that point, the story of Dragon Ball well and truly was. For a decade and a half or so, until some of the professional corpse desecrators in
Also, to be fair, like, I mean, GT does kind of end with the end of Goku's story, because, like, he he's sort of dead or sort of not. It's kind of vague, but he is almost kind of dead. So, anyway.
Hollywood dug it back up to do their thing, and the shock of seeing that thing was so great, it actually brought the creative spark back to Toriyama's eyes. Not nearly as much as was there when he started, but enough to write a pretty good, better than Boo at least, movie every 3 years or so, introducing Death God.
So, okay, this is the other thing you saw saying. So, this is a misconception I think people actually do have, because it sounds good as well, but the reality is a bit more complicated. So, people think that the idea was, Toriyama saw Dragon Ball Evolution, and he was just like so offended at it that he said, I'm going to write my own Dragon Ball story instead, my own Dragon Ball continuation, and then now with Battle of Gods. No, that is not how it went down. How it went down was Toei were planning on doing Battle of Gods anyway. They had already sort of written out a rough idea, rough concept. They had a script written by Yusuke Watanabe, and they were pretty much going to do it regardless. They sent it to Toriyama, and they kind of said, hey, Toriyama, we have this thing. What do you think? Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think this sounds cool? What do you think? Do you think this is good? Do you have any ideas? And Toriyama, basically, because he was thinking about Dragon Ball Evolution, I guess, it was sort of like, actually, you know what? Like they were expecting Toriyama to do what he did with basically all of the other Z movies, which this was apparently how it sort of probably worked, where all of the Z movies, they still vaguely sort of passed it by Toriyama, gave him a vague understanding of what the movie was, and says, "Hey, does that sound good?" And he would just say, "Yeah, sure, whatever." Well, probably pretty busy as well because he's in the middle of writing manga and drawing his manga, so he's not really thinking too much about it necessarily. He's not that invested in it. They just say, "Hey, can we get the go ahead to do this?" And he says yes. Different is when they did that with Battle of Gods many years later, and they asked Toriyama, "Hey, can we get the go ahead?" Toriyama said, "Actually, you know what? I have some ideas. Maybe instead of making Beerus a lizard, you make him my cat." And okay, see ya, Jakevis. Instead of making Beerus a lizard, why don't you make him my cat? And instead of making the Super Saiyan God look like this, why don't we just make a Goku with red hair? And instead of these random criminals who are going to try and steal the Dragon Balls, why don't we make them the Pilaf gang? Because why not? But basically, he made all of those. He made all of those suggestions, and by the time all of that all went through, it was basically a completely new movie, and that was what ends up being Battle of Gods. But yeah, basically, Dragon Ball Evolution did not make Toriyama write Battle of Gods. Battle of Gods was already going to be a thing. It's just it inspired him to be a bit more hands-on for the next thing and make a bit more changes himself, as opposed to just sort of saying, "Looks good enough, I don't really care, sure, I'll look forward to seeing it in theaters." He actually said, "You know what, I don't want this character, I want the character to look like this, here's a new character as well, you guys can do that's basically it."
Gods to the Dragon Ball universe, bringing back Frieza, and reworking the movie-only character Broly than Boo at least movie every 3 years or so, introducing Death Gods to the Dragon Ball universe, bringing back Frieza, and reworking the movie-only character Broly to not be terrible anymore.
No, hot take, I guess, because everyone else likes Broly. No, new Broly is not terrible anymore. He's still pretty boring. Sorry, guys. It's really not that much of an improvement. It is the bare minimum of an improvement, and everyone's acting like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. No, he's still barely a character. Anyway.
But that, in turn, put the cartoon yen signs back in Toei and Shueisha's eyes, more than enough for them to put out a not very good TV episode every week or so from 2015 to 2018, collectively titled Dragon Ball Super.
So, okay, and honestly, this is the thing that annoyed me the most, the oversimplification. He put Broly in the part of he talks about Broly chronologically before Dragon Ball Super, the TV series, as if Broly happened before Super, that Broly was one of these Toei movies that they thought of every few years, and then after the success of that, then they made the TV series of Super, where no, that is the complete opposite. Yeah, Battle of Gods and Resurrection F were made before the TV series, and it was the success of Resurrection F specifically that sort of inspired them to make Dragon Ball Super. Not Broly. Broly happened after Dragon Ball Super finished. It was basically just more Dragon Ball Super. If anything, it was being produced at the same time as the Dragon Ball Super television show. If you thought Broly was a good movie, that's great. But you don't have to retroactively change history to try and make it sound like Broly had some kind of more the same amount of creative merit as Battle of Gods and Resurrection F were when they were just movies, and they have nothing to do with the terrible Dragon Ball TV series, Dragon Ball Super. No. Broly is the most Dragon Ball Super TV series movie that it could possibly be. That's why it's literally called Dragon Ball Super, the movie. Yeah, if you like Broly, that's fine, but do not engage in revisionist history to make it sound like Broly is more creatively valid than a Dragon Ball Super movie, because it is. That's what it is.
In which Goku, now officially the strongest dude in the whole universe, has to fight all the same villains from those pretty good movies, but way slower this time. Plus, in between them, such stunningly creative enemies as the strongest guy from a parallel universe and Goku from the future, but he's evil now.
Okay, and
if you think that's creatively bankrupt,
Okay, and so that is his summary of Dragon Ball Super, which makes me think I don't think he watched I don't think he ever watched Dragon Ball Super at all. I mean, maybe he watched I think he probably maybe he watched a few bits of the movie retellings, heard they were movie retellings, and heard about some villains. And assumed that that's exactly how it went. When first of all, he's got the timeline of these events all wrong. The movie retellings happen first. Everything after that is all completely new material, all completely original material. They'd never go back and retell Broly in the TV series. After all, it's just the first two movies. And yeah, I guess Universe 6 is a parallel universe, I guess, but it's not like Kid isn't related to Goku, and he's talking about Goku Black, and he never mentions Jiren, which makes me think that, yeah, I don't think he watched any of the Tournament of Power, which is like 50 episodes of Dragon Ball Super. Like, it's over a third of the entire series, and he has absolutely no idea what it is and what it's about, which is, well, he knows a little bit, as we'll get to later, but it's like if you want to talk about Dragon Ball Super being some kind of creatively bankrupt thing, I think you actually have to watch all of the Tournament of Power, because it is the most it is probably the most original thing the Dragon Ball Super does in its entire runtime. Given the Universe 6 arc is okay, but it's very short. Future Trunks arc is, well, yeah, it's a lot of Cell arc, Future Trunks nostalgia stuff, because Future Trunks is back. I mean, the evil Goku stuff's a bit different, but you can even argue it's just taken from common fan theories and whatnot. The Tournament of Power is like the most original stuff Dragon Ball Super does, and everyone who shits on Dragon Ball Super, I feel like haven't even watched that stuff. They don't even know that it is such a big part of the TV series, and it took up so much time of the TV series because it's the most creative and the most, it feels like some kind of a forward progression that the series actually does in all of its runtime, because Battle of Gods and Resurrection F, well, Battle of Gods opens up the opportunity for things to be new. Resurrection F doesn't really do much at all. It's only until the Tournament of Power that they actually start talking about, hey, there's like other universes and well, I mean, no, I mean Universe 6 as well, but Tournament of Power, they've got, there's many universes. Goku actually has a new form of power that's different and more powerful than the movies, and it was also something that was alluded to during the movies. Like, it actually does feel like it is progressing the plot, and nobody who shits on Super talks about it or watches it, and I feel like it's just inaccurate. If you're gonna shit on Super, at least watch more than like 2 episodes of the Tournament of Power and act like you've watched the entire thing.
Wait till you hear about Super Dragon Ball Heroes, not to be confused with Dragon Ball Superhero, the most recent pretty good movie.
At least he called the recent movie pretty good, because thanks, it is.
Series of 8-minute web-only gacha game commercials that's been running.
Okay, I'm sorry. Super Dragon Ball Heroes is not a gacha game. It's an arcade game. It is an arcade game that is only available in Japan. And you may think like that's not much of a distinction, but I think it is. At least there's a little bit of a distinction. Because, the fact that Super Dragon Ball Heroes is this Japanese arcade thing is the exact reason as to why these commercials are so made for the Japanese domestic market only that they don't subtitle these things, because they know it applies to a series, to an advertisement for a thing that people outside of Japan cannot play. This is not like some big continuation of Dragon Ball. It is this little thing they made for their promotional game, arcade game, in Japan for Japanese children, and basically for nobody else. Anyway.
Since DB Super ended, in which the franchise owners used the established plot devices of parallel universes and time travel to stage a series of wrestling matches between Goku and other different Gokus, plus some Vegetas sometimes, and anyone else from all the other Dragon Ball things who's even remotely marketable. While there are
also, to be fair, I haven't actually watched the Super Dragon Ball Heroes things. I think I watched like a few of them, and that's about it. But like, it's not really I don't even think there's much of an overlying plot at all. It is more just and it's not even really, I don't know, it's not really wrestling match. It's just a series of them giving, kind of showing off the kind of characters who would be in the new card expansion, and vaguely piecing together some kind of a bit of a at least reason as to why it's happening, and that's about it.
There are definitely some good things about this new non-video game Dragon Ball revival era. Exactly 4 good things.
Uh, interesting that he's like, because it's interesting he's like,
Parallel universe of 8 minutes in which the travel to Goku's plus remotely marketable. While there are definitely some good things about this new non-video game Dragon Ball revival,
so, it's nice that he's like, there are some good things about this new Dragon Ball revival. Points to Ultra Instinct, and then
era, exactly 4 good things.
But then he just says, "Oh no, it's just 4 good things," which are the movies, so I guess does he like Ultra Instinct or not? He mentions Ultra Instinct. Well, they show Ultra Instinct there, saying that maybe he's thinking that even if Dragon Ball Super wasn't very good, the episodes in the Tournament of Power with the Ultra Instinct, the new form and stuff, and the cool animation of those episodes were good. But he doesn't mention that. He just says, "Oh, the only good things are the 4 movies." So it's just like inconsistent. It's confusing. I'm like, why is he saying this? Like, there's just so many little things. I'm like, why are you saying it like that? But then you're putting it like that. Like maybe it is that the editor had a completely different idea to what he's thinking than what he's actually saying, and maybe that's why you see that later on in the editor's note, an editor basically says, actually no, what Jeff is saying here is wrong. Let me just quickly put an explanation here. But he doesn't say that for the Dragon Ball, so maybe he doesn't care. I don't know.
Totaling about 6 hours of runtime. When you look at it as a whole, the noise to signal ratio of all this new content is, frankly, just depressing. An endless loop of fights and training arcs and fights and training arcs that almost makes me miss the barely sensical MacGuffin hunting adventures of GT. And it only...
There you go. He's like it's the common thing. If you want to be a cool anime fan, you've just got to say, well, Dragon Ball GT is bad, but Dragon Ball Super is so bad that I think that actually GT isn't that bad after all. Am I right, guys? Wow, I'm so edgy. And it's like, I can at least agree when I'm watching, if I'm seeing, the Super Dragon Ball Hero stuff, I could agree that, yeah, maybe the signal-to-noise ratio is too bad. There is too much mindless stuff here where you are just taking the established stuff and putting it in a commercial and not really caring about any sort of thing about continuity or stakes or development or anything. It is just constant rehashing of Dragon Ball. I can understand that for the Super Dragon Ball Heroes web commercial. The Super Dragon Ball Heroes web commercial is just also not made for me. And it is not for the purpose of more Dragon Ball for me. It is the purpose of having some animation to relate to the new cards for the arcade game that they want all the kids in Japan to play. It is like, I can understand the criticism, but you have to put this in context. And in context, this is something that they don't even want you to be watching anyway. It is that you are not supposed to know about Trinity. You are not supposed to watch Super Dragon Ball Heroes because you are not the market for this.
Only gets more depressing when you realize that by now, nearly half of all the Dragon Ball anime episodes that have ever been produced are of Buu Saga quality or lower.
I don't know how. I guess if he's counting all of the Buu Saga and then all of GT and all of Super, and it's more than. I'd have to do the math myself. Maybe the math does actually work out, but it's like. Well, basically what it's really just saying is you're just shitting on the Buu Saga for no good reason, other than just the fact that you say, well, Goku got brought back to life after he died in it, so that's part of also the death and destruction of the creative liberties of Dragon Ball. Which is like, no, I mean, it's I guess that makes it sound like you really do believe your own bit that the Buu Saga only happened because Toriyama's editors and the creative mandates pushed him to make another arc, even though that's not the case. He was always going to continue the story. So I don't know. It's just that I think you need to realize your bits aren't actually true.
As much as anything it's ever been, this is what Dragon Ball is now.
Hi, I'm Kelly
shut
Sloan,
up.
your Liberal candidate.
Okay, do not look at that. Well, you can't see it. God, fuck you. Fucking ads trying to dox me on stream. Thank you.
Without an endpoint, without a clear reason for the characters to keep speaking beyond the paying audience's demand to hear them talk, all stories eventually lose all meaning. Instead of helping us understand and overcome our own struggles by offering a new perspective on them, they become nothing but a mind-numbing distraction that traps us in repetitious ways of thinking and prevents us from doing anything about those problems, consuming ever more seconds of our precious and irreplaceable time on Earth in exchange for ever-dwindling returns, at most helping us get through it, but never over it. A story that never ends is a horrifying prospect indeed. Now, as a counterpoint to that, you might point to the widely beloved 80s fantasy classic, The Never-Ending Story, a movie about a young boy who finds solace after his mother's death in a world of living fiction called Fantastica, eventually overcoming a sinister force representing
Editor's note, what were you saying there?
fiction called Fantastica.
It's Fantastica in the book. Jeff isn't wrong. We know it's Fantasia in the movie. Stop writing that comment, Wayne Slick. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. I guess he did his research on that. He just didn't do his research on Dragon Ball.
Eventually overcoming a sinister force representing the emptiness of loss and an inability to believe in fiction, and emerging stronger for his imaginary experience, with the book and its story carrying on through all time after that, so they can help countless other sad and lost children across the ages, as they presumably have since time immemorial. Or that was the implication until the film appropriately spawned some sequels and eventually a whole Canadian TV show, allowing many a child to spend countless hours away from our problems in the dreamy land of Fantastica.
I mean, yeah, like I can understand that. Like I said, I'm not. This is past my expert subjects. I can't really tell you anything more. But like, I mean, yeah, in terms of the thematic idea of like a, you know, telling an individual story because you have a story to tell, and then people saying, but actually that fantasy world you created for the story is cool. I'm just gonna put more stories into that because it's people will like it. And like I can understand that as sort of a, oh, you know, creative integrity and whatever. Dragon Ball is not that, because Dragon Ball never had any creative integrity, basically.
Myself included. So how can I say that such an experience is fundamentally bad for us? Because that's the entire point of The Never-Ending Story, actually. In the original German novel, the book and Fantastica are this sort of psychic parasite that fulfills people's wishes and makes them feel special in exchange for consuming their memories and turning them into empty, motivationless husks of their former selves.
Well,
in the original text, Bastian Bux isn't special. He's not the chosen one. He's just the latest in an uncountably long line of the book's victims who are now trapped in a state of eternal, anonymous, meaningless stagnation within its endless pages.
You know what this sounds like? It reminds me of Coraline.
Lured in by the siren song of heroism and glory. Sure, the pain that drove them away from the real world is gone, but everything else that makes them them has been taken along with it. And while Bastian does escape that fate in the end, the story concludes with the suggestion that you, the reader, may be next. And if not, then surely someone else in due time. The Never-Ending Story, in its original form, is a cautionary tale about both the power and the dangers of escapism and belief. But the film version just casually chucks out all of that messy, uncomfortable meaning to make it more palatable to an American audience that only wants to be sedated in its time off work or school. Financially speaking, an unquestionably good call. Morally and artistically, though? Author Michael Ende has called the movie revolting, and despite my deep-rooted nostalgia for it, now that I know how the book ends, I'm hard-pressed to disagree. The movie takes a story that intentionally appeals to one of our most self-destructive, addictive impulses and replaces the subversive part meant to help us overcome that with a call to action to take another hit. It's the film equivalent of going to a detox center and replacing all the methadone with heroin. It's just fundamentally evil shit, even if the folks you're serving it up to say, "Thank you, sir, may I have another," in the moment. And they almost certainly will. Human beings, as a rule, do not like it when things end, which sucks for us because everything has to eventually. I'm not being philosophical when I say that. I mean, literally, it all has to. Entropy is a fundamental, inescapable rule of our physical reality that will one day claim even things as seemingly eternal as the sun in the sky or the ground beneath our feet. But fiction, especially television, offers us an escape from that reality, and many other unpleasant ones, letting us live in worlds where good always rises to meet the threat of evil, any problem can be solved in a tight half hour, our minds carry on after death, just waiting to be wished back, and we never have to move out and say goodbye to the quirky yellow family down the street or the endearingly psychotic folks in the New York apartment next door. There's a comfort knowing you can flick on the TV at any point and the same old friends you've known for over a decade now will still be there. Until, inevitably, they're not, because the money ran out and they stopped making new episodes, or the extremely talented actors on the project kept growing out of their place in it, or, alternatively, you make the choice to leave because those quirky yellow friends of yours have been slowly transformed by market forces and exhausted writers running out of places to go into cartoon parodies of the cartoon parodies they started as. Unable to escape the tide of merchandising momentum pulling them ever onward into an increasingly unrecognizable future, with their only genuinely funny joke left to tell being about that very fate. We like to think we come to anime to get away from that kind of cynical, repetitive corporate Hollywood bullshit for real stories that really mean something and don't coddle their audiences, but do we?
I don't know, Dropbox.
We put a
why
lot of
don't you
meaning
ask
in
me?
a signature. It signifies the start.
Or are we just looking for a different, more exotic flavor of the same thing?
I mean, yeah. Yeah, like this is even. I mean, yeah, because we always have like freaking anime seasons. There's always new anime and the whole overproduction of anime nowadays. And I hope it's going to tie that into that.
If you look at the anime that's historically been the most popular and consistently profitable, sure, Demon Slayer made waves by paring
Yeah, not.
down and optimizing the shonen formula to a tight 100 chapters, and Hiroaka got where it was going eventually, but Naruto made kajillions milking that formula for all it was worth, and it even has its own version of Dragon Ball Super now in Boruto.
Okay, so here we go. The editor's note. Boruto actually announced its finale since this was recorded, but Kishimoto just started writing a new spin-off sequel about manga about a different, albeit more interesting. What? What? What are you talking about? I don't even know what you're talking about. What? I haven't heard about that. I need to ask my friends about that because I haven't heard about a new Kishimoto manga. But I have Boruto. No, the Boruto anime hasn't ended. The Boruto manga is still going, and I assume the Boruto anime is ended because it wants to wait for the manga to finish the manga story of Boruto, and then it's gonna come back. Like, you guys have an editor's note. You had to stop and write this stuff out, and you're still getting it wrong. Why? How?
Which started running with its hands behind its back as soon as the original stopped, and shows little signs of slowing down anytime soon. Ash Ketchum was a 10-year-old kid trying to win just one tournament for like a quarter of a century. Then there's Detective Conan, ostensibly a story about how horrifying and inconvenient it would be for an accomplished teenager with a girlfriend to be turned back into a little kid that hasn't actually done anything about its protagonist being stuck like that for even longer than Pokemon has existed. Of course, I'm not coming down on all long-form narratives. One Piece has been driving toward a clear and consistent goal for almost as long as Conan and Pokemon, always moving forward and always finding something new to say about and with its characters and world every step of that journey. Lord of the Rings takes 3 ages to get where it's going, but its meaning would be far lesser if you took out any part of that journey, even the boring bits where they're just sort of eating snacks. The way the Expanse's universe expands in scope from book to book, from claustrophobic alien-esque horror all the way up to a sweeping space opera about intergalactic empires, really needs to be read to believed. And as I said in my Bleach video, I'm a big fan of the Stormlight Archives, which are only 4 half-million-word novels into a planned series of 10. It is entirely possible to create a world and story that someone can spend a significant chunk of their life immersed in and still come out the other side richer for it, with a broader perspective on life. But it takes a lot of careful planning and a firm grasp on your intentions to create something like that without letting it devolve into an endless forever piece that just generates money. And the funny thing is, if you talk to someone who's already sunk months of their life into watching Dragon Ball or Naruto or The Simpsons or Family Guy about how good One Piece is, there's a good chance they'll tell you they just ain't got the time for it. And the argument that, no, it's actually building toward an ending and everything matters rarely convinces them to give it a go, because if you'll permit me to speculate for a second, I think the very fact that it is building toward an ending, that it expects them to invest so much into the world and characters just so they can say goodbye at the end, might be the most intimidating thing about One Piece.
Ridiculous.
I mean, I've seen the same response to much more finite media. Multiple commenters on my Mob Psycho 100 retrospective have told me they've held off on finishing the series simply because they don't want it to end, even if that means leaving.
And it is no, I was one of these people. At me next time, Jeff, Adam. P.S. I love you. But no, seriously. Okay, Jeff, that is one hell of a reach, okay? Being like, oh no, you don't understand. The only people who like Dragon Ball and Naruto, but they don't read the clearly more superior One Piece, are only people who don't have a proper prefrontal cortex and don't have an understanding of the idea that things have to end. Clearly, the only reason they would ever like something that doesn't have a clear beginning, middle, and end, and doesn't have a filler, is because they are objectively dumb. And I, as the true connoisseur of anime, know that One Piece is way better than Dragon Ball, and you all need to watch One Piece, or you are actually a retard. I am using the ableist slur because that's honestly that is how condescending it comes off as. If you say it like that, don't you realize that? God, I was just here going here because I wanted to make notice all the Dragon Ball errors. But guys, do you realize what you're trying? Like, I know you have theories here, and you're trying to say that you're doing that with evidence, but like, that is still, even with evidence, it is still a massive generalization. You are taking the comments of some people and saying, well, I guess that must, I think that's the underlying reason. Like, no, that is not a sample size. A few YouTube commenters are not a sample size to make inferences about fans of an entire thing where they have millions of fans worldwide. Come on, Jeff.
Mob hanging forever on the cusp of self-actualization. And it's hardly an uncommon sentiment. I have a very good anime YouTube friend who loves Ghibli movies more than almost anything else, but has intentionally held off on watching the only one he hasn't seen yet for years, solely for the comfort of knowing there'd still be some new Miyazaki magic out there for him. I'm not going to name names because I don't want anyone to feel bad, but I'm sure that me bringing that up will prompt plenty of comments from those of you who've done something similar, putting off an anime or manga or game simply because you don't want to say goodbye to it. So if anybody doubts that that's a thing that happens, just scroll down and you'll see what I mean. And I get that. Hell, I used to do that. But I stopped doing it when I realized that whether or not I let my favorite stories end, mine will eventually. Probably a lot less eventually than I'd like it to, and with very little warning. So if I don't say my own farewell to my favorite characters and worlds before then, I mean, they're definitely not going to do the same for me, what with how they're fictional and all. So
Okay, but what are you trying to say, though? That you are therefore better than every other anime fan who wants to still consume their media and doesn't want it to end because you have accepted the inevitability of death and therefore you have gone through all your character development? Like, why are you phrasing it like this? There are ways you can phrase this that don't come off as condescending, and you are choosing the most condescending way to do it.
I started finishing things that I'd put off for ages, and conversely, made a conscious choice to stop going with stories that I felt had reached their natural endpoints, like The Simpsons or every new Dragon Ball thing aside from the movies. If I do find myself
Well,
craving more of
it's
those
okay
things,
because you don't have to watch Super Dragon Ball Heroes because it is not for you and they do not want you to watch it. That is why it is not subtitled or streamed anywhere that you can legally watch it. Like, even if you try to go onto the YouTube things, if you're not in Japan, it will not let you watch it. It's okay. The movies are exactly what they want you to keep watching because that's what the movies are. So, yeah, you're fine. That doesn't. You are like every other Dragon Ball fan. That doesn't make you better.
instead of seeking out the new, weaker filler, I'll just go back to the old good stuff to see what new meaning I can derive from it on a second viewing with deeper analysis. And when I go back to reread Dragon Ball, I honestly waffle between carrying on through the Buu saga or just letting it end where the abridged boys did.
Oh, come on.
I think they made the right call. Not only have I found
come on. I mean, listen, I love TFS, but they. I mean, you have to talk to Kaiser about it, actually. I mean, not just Kaiser. You have to talk to Lanny and Tucker as well, but, like, DBZ is, I at least in my head, it's like Kaiser's baby, even if it isn't necessarily. They obviously it's a collaborative effort, but I think they would have wanted to do the Boo saga if they wanted, but God, I wonder. I actually do wonder what Kaiser has to has to say about something like that. Like, because they ended it off at Cell. That is obviously shows that Cell is a thematically better way to end it, and it was because the TFS guys they just know so much better about storytelling than these guys and Akira Toriyama. That clearly they have the better ending to Dragon Ball than Dragon Ball. And yeah, I mean, like Kaiser hates all that. Oh, Dragon Ball Z Abridged is better than Dragon Ball Z because he's like, first of all, I think he gets annoyed because it becomes this big conception and it just leads to disrespecting the actual work that they are parodying out of love. And second of all is because, then people get pissed off and then start saying, well, obviously then it's Team 4 Star's fault that insert bad thing about the fandom here. And then he doesn't want to be blamed for that because, first of all, the stuff that they write is just a reflection of the stuff that they see in the fandom. They do not invent the bad memes. These bad memes come from a place of them noticing this stuff and seeing other people notice it. And also, he doesn't want to be a scapegoat for everything. He just wants them to be people and not be looked at as like Satan by the Dragon Ball fandom because so I got a bit sidetracked there. What I was saying? Right, yeah. Don't make that take. It's a bad take. Bad take. Bad take. Scott would go to you and say bad take.
This approach, gives me a lot more time to actually live my life and experience way more cool new stories that the old me might never have gotten to, and actually get to the end of them. Not only does it give me a deeper appreciation for the ones that do compel me to come back, saying goodbye to all those old faves, being content to live with the memories instead of trying to recapture that fresh first-time feeling I can never get back, has made me a lot more comfortable with accepting the endpoints that will inevitably come in all the real stories I'm living off the screen. Fiction isn't just an escape vehicle from reality. It's a mental tool we can use to simulate, analyze, and confront different aspects of reality in a safe, consequence-free context. I'd argue it's the single most powerful tool we as a species have at our disposal, as it's what's allowed us to invent all the others. But it's only useful if we make use of it. If we learn to separate the fiction from the reality, take what we need from stories, like the perspective of their creators, the reflections they prompt within us, or techniques we can apply to our own art, and learn to put them down when we're not getting anything more out of them. If we don't, the stories we're told might end up using us instead, milking our fear of finality to keep us hooked on an endless drip feed of plot turns and revelations that always seems to bring us back to the same hollow place, eating away at our existence.
That's because they're all Yamamuro storyboarded. That's why all of them look the same. Because it just looks like Tadayoshi Yamamuro, and it just looks like that, which looks like Resurrection F, and a little bit of Battle of Gods. Even though I don't think he storyboarded Battle of Gods, but there are parts of it where it's like a, you look at Battle of Gods and Resurrection F, and then you look at basically any other thing besides Super Dragon Ball Heroes. You look at any of the other choreography of fight scenes of like anything else, and you're like, wow, it's night and day. It is. They like. You can argue about bad stuff about Dragon Ball Super, but I think one thing it did do good is it completely it said that Dragon Ball could be divorced from Yamamuro's storyboarding style, and it ran with that to the point that people are okay with that, to the point that we now have things like Broly and Superhero. So anyway, like if it wasn't for the TV series, who knows what would have, like, maybe the movies would have just kept looking and feeling exactly the same. Maybe not, but maybe. Maybe it was just, that TV production that made them be like, well, we don't have the time and the money to make everything look like the previous movies, so everyone has to chip in with their own sort of ways and their own sort of styles. That's where you get stuff like Takahashi deciding to just start shading everybody like they were in 90s Dragon Ball Z in the Tournament of Power, and everyone's like going crazy over that. Like, actually, that's the coolest shit ever. And then he started putting that in the Broly movie, and that was the coolest shit ever. And everyone talks about Takahashi style. So, it's I'm getting sidetracked. Let's finish this video for once.
Minute by minute to fuel their own endless stagnation, and in the worst cases, warping how we view reality itself until we're incapable of functioning within it, clinging so tight to comfortable lies that we reject obviously useful truths alongside the inconvenient ones and leave ourselves open to manipulation, which is another thing the original Never-Ending Story touched on. That's what the werewolf guy represents. But you can start taking charge of the stories you take in and the story you're writing for yourself. All you gotta do is learn how to let Goku die. And please, please do it before the robots take over television. I'm Jeff Thu, professional escapist, still working up the courage to eventually touch some grass someday, maybe.
Okay, welp, I guess that's all I can really say is welp. So at the end of the day, I actually had almost as many problems with the actual video message itself than just him using Dragon Ball as a bad example. But, I mean, so there's two issues. One, Dragon Ball is a bad example of this, because, yeah, sure, you can argue that, hey, the Dragon Ball manga ended, and then they brought it back, and all that kind of stuff, but I mean, one, I think the original creator is okay with that. If he is ever thinking, well, I don't know, I just think that Dragon Ball's been going on for too long, he can just sort of say it. It's nobody is bringing his arms and forcing him to do it. Like, guys, it's he's doing it because he feels like it. He can, and it's not a bad issue. And even what Rob is saying, the other thing is that, well, yeah, Masako Nozawa isn't getting any younger, and blah blah blah. Goku could be recast, and what's going to happen in that situation? that leads to the other point that Dragon Ball, modern Dragon Ball is still leading. I'm putting air quotes even though I don't have a face cam on. So I'm saying modern in air quotes, but modern Dragon Ball is still progressing towards something. Things happen chronologically after each other, and it is always still leading to the end of the epilogue, and we have no idea. We still don't know if they're going to touch on that and if they're going to go beyond that. But it is, at least in the movies, it's actually constantly getting closer to that. You have like Pan, it like starts with like, oh, it's 5 years or whatever until it, and then it's like, oh, Vidal's pregnant with Pan, and then Pan is a baby, and then in Broly, I guess it's just that it's after the. Ironically, Broly is like the one that doesn't actually feel like it fits. Oh wait, no, is Bra in? I can't remember actually if Bra is in Broly or something. Maybe she is, and then that could be the reason as to why things are moving forward. And so she is born during the Super TV series, and then comes superhero. Pan is now old enough to be, walking and talking and being an actual character. So, it's slow, but like between the stuff that you can call Dragon Ball Super, things are actually moving towards something, which is at least the end of the manga. The epilogue in the manga, and until we get to that point, until we see what if they choose to do something after that, you really can't say that Dragon Ball is just an endless stream of content that's never going to move forward, because it is. It's slow, but it is still moving forward in time. So that's number one. It's not accurate, and also a lot of those out of universe explanations behind the scenes as to why all these things happening were completely wrong. So also there's that. So that's number one. Number two, I think you're having the wrong conceptions about Dragon Ball. It's okay for some media to end and do all this kind of stuff, and that's what they are doing. Dragon Ball doesn't have to be that. Not everything has to have this sort of, big. I guess it's the reason to why I'm upset. I don't like the fact that he's talking about the GT ending being being a good idea, because it's talking about consequences of the Dragon Balls. I think you're getting the wrong idea of the kind of story Dragon Ball is. It doesn't have to be this creative art talking about accepting the inevitability of death and consequences. Like, there's other media that can do that. Dragon Ball can be the thing that doesn't do that, and that doesn't make it any lesser. It's just means it's doing its own thing. It's not a problem. So basically, I guess my too long didn't read is, I like the idea for the video, but I think you needed a different example. Like, heck, you should have just made it about the never-ending story. That's the only example you have there that actually holds some weight. And even then, I don't know if it's accurate, but maybe it is. Because you've got quotes there, so I assume so. Like, just make it about that. The Dragon Ball comparison actually just confuses it more than it needs to be. The Naruto stuff as well. The Naruto is not endless. Well, it wasn't really. I mean, I also don't know much about Boruto. He's talking about Naruto like it's endless, but it's not. It has an end, and it had the thing that was moving forward. The only reason it didn't feel like it wasn't progressing is because there was all these filler arcs because they couldn't overtake the manga. It didn't mean that Naruto was going to end. It was just they were just in suspend animation until it moved forward, and then there was an ending. And Boruto, I can't say anything about Boruto. So basically, I guess, yeah, good idea for a video, bad execution, irrelevant examples that are not actually relevant to the point you're trying to make, and also you got to be pretentious at the end there, being like almost saying that like because you've accepted it, you are smarter and better and a better person and a more self-actualized human being when we are not, and that comes off the wrong way no matter how you really do it. At least that's my opinion. His videos, I guess, are mostly hit and miss. Like when they miss, I'm not like so offended. They're not terrible because he at least has an idea here, but yeah, bad research combined with, I guess, just not thinking about how your videos are coming off. Anyway, meanwhile, Whereas lab workers are like, this guy wants to be the video essayist in the vein of Lindsay Ellis so bad. Geez, the last 4 minutes are so pretentious. I love Lindsay Ellis, by the way. She is the GOAT. Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. Like, the only thing worse than video essayists is bad video essayists. People who are just like they're trying to be smart, but they just the problem is it's not even like they're not smart. It's just like the places where they fall short are places where it's just like you did the wrong research. You came to the wrong conclusion because I actually know that that's not true. That's often the problem with these kinds of people where it's like it's got a good video, but it's making me annoyed because it's not accurate. It's not just that they come to the it's like they're trying to research, but they're researching wrong. It's so weird when that happens. So, yeah, it's just anyway. And also, it's an unfortunate situation. Dragon Ball won't end until it stops making money, and it won't stop making money until it gets so bad people want to watch it anymore. Just watch what you want to watch. They did the whole video in a few sentences. Yeah, I mean, I do agree. Like after the it's just basically it's not a well constructed video. It kind of goes everywhere, and the points it's making at the beginning don't really fit in with the point of the video. Unfortunately, at least that's my opinion. As a video essayist who doesn't actually make video essays, I just sometimes think about them, and I don't know. Maybe, God, it'd be cool if I could edit someone else's video essay. That sounds no. Wait, why am I saying that? But it's like I think I'm like good at this critique where I'm critiquing this on the level of what you're actually trying to say, not on the level of are you right or wrong? I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, best video essayist ever. Bring back the Dragon Ball retro review. Oh no, I can't do that joke anymore because the fandom is conception about Dragon Ball, new Dragon Ball's changed so much. The joke doesn't work anymore. The joke really doesn't work anymore because people do hold Dragon Ball Super to standards now and Dragon Ball Z standards, but you know. It was a funny joke back when that was what the fandom was about. Now the fandom is just so I don't even know what it is. It's something. Anyway, I need to make a Gohan video eventually. That is my list of things to do. I think I started scripting something for that, and then I don't know what I did with it. So, by the way, number one Dragon Ball Super hater over here. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I don't hate Super, but even then, it's like I don't hate Super, but it's more just like I don't hate the Tournament of Power in the anime, even though it has flaws. I think it's flawed, but it's the most original Dragon Ball new Dragon Ball stuff had gotten the whole time. Even though it does do a lot of throwbacks, and Broly and Superhero do get worse with that, but I think I think it's the most fun I've had with modern Dragon Ball stuff. Like Superhero is fun, but it's fun because it is me writing it. It's not actually me writing it, but it just feels like it's me writing it. Anyway, so yeah, I guess that's my opinion on his video, and I don't think it's not like he's gonna watch this, so it's fine. He doesn't have time for something like that, but I guess it's a situation where it's like I think it's. I can see what you're trying to do, and I appreciate it, and I just think you needed somebody else to look over this and make actual and point out if or not this is true. And if the editors are not realizing that, I think the editors I just think personally, I think you just needed to sorry about hitting the microphone there. You needed to cook that a little bit more. Let it cook? No, it needs to cook a bit more. So that's my opinion. And yeah, God, no, but that was interesting. This is why I like talking about these things, because it's like I don't just be like a yes, no, right, wrong. It's just like I like thinking about things in depth with complicated details and all that kind of stuff. So it's actually quite fun. And thank you for the follow, your boy Tro, 7 minutes ago. I didn't see that because I don't have stream alerts on anything like this. So yeah, But I guess that's kind of all I really have to say, at least for now. I just rambling about this isn't really going to help you much. Should put this man on blast in a new YouTube video. You won't. No, I won't, because like I do respect him. I think this video is good. It's all right, but it's not amazing, and it has flaws in it, and some of those are because he doesn't know Dragon Ball as well as he thinks he does, and some of them are just because I think he just did not think about how his video comes off. So, you know, maybe it's just a ideological thing. Maybe he just honestly believes it like that. But I don't know. I don't know. It's just like video essayists and not being pretentious. Like how, like it's so hard for them to not. I think maybe that's why also I'm like, oh, I can't write this. It sounds too pretentious. So, I don't know, but it's kind of all I basically want to say. So, yeah, maybe God, who knows? Maybe I'll put this onto YouTube. Well, if I do, I had to take some bits out, including the ads that were doxing me. So I need to take those out because, yeah. But besides that, yeah, it was. I should do this more often. I should watch videos and talk about them more often because why do I do that? I mean, why don't I do that more? It's fun talking about things. I don't have anyone who else cares about this sort of stuff. So, yeah. Anyway, it's everybody who showed up. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for all the attention, and I'll probably just I'll see what I do next time if I have a stream decide I don't know, stream urge. Let's put it that way. If I stream urge, I'll do it again maybe. Or if I get heated again after somebody else did a Dragon Ball take and it was bad, we'll see. But everybody have a good day, and I'll see you next time.